I love missionary, and that's my favorite, and that's what I'm going to always do. And I don't want nothing else but vanilla. I love me some vanilla. Nope, not chocolate chip. Nope, not cookie dough. I just like vanilla. So if that's what's going to cause a problem.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point, you realized you were married into crazy.
And that's what our podcast is all about. We offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as we unpack this crazy thing called marriage.
So sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to episode 92 of Married into Crazy with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
Oh, I'm Snooks.
See the amount of abuse I take in this relationship?
I said 92.
I know, but you was talking over me. That's abuse.
Okay.
In some way, shape, or form. I think so. Anyway, we want to welcome everybody back. We love the conversations that we've been having with a lot of our friends and family over the course of the last 2 weeks. There's a lot happening in the U.S. I'm especially proud of my daughters, my daughter, one of which is actually standing up for her rights, and she's out and talking to people and having uncomfortable conversations.
Uncomfortable conversations with us.
Well, we've had some great ones here in the house as well.
Yeah, she's really, it's exciting to see her be an activist. She has her own views about certain things, and she calls mom and dad out on things that she thinks how we should do something better or different. And, I applaud that. But sometimes I'm like, okay, pump the brakes, girl. Watch that tone.
She up here talking about, I'm Angela Davis. She don't even know who Angela Davis is. But it's funny. To your point, she's had me kind of reevaluate the way I've approached certain things. Yeah, absolutely. And she's gotten me active in a few ways. It was nice. We actually went out and protested and did some demonstrations together as a family. She and I went one day, and then you joined us the next day. I thought that was really good, and it's great. We've had some, like I said, some phenomenal conversations where we've pushed her and how she thinks critically, and she's actually pushed us in things that we need to consider going forward. So it's been really fun in that respect. But I think that says a lot about relationships. I think we need to have uncomfortable conversations, even within our relationships.
Yeah. So sorry. Anyway, it's very hot in here. I just worked out. This is my second day in a row. So for all of you that are watching, I'm kind of shiny. But I was telling Lovey, if you could see me, I'm like,
she was telling Lovey, I'm just going to stare at myself and take up the whole camera.
No, I'm just saying, his light is better than mine.
It's the same light.
My light.
It's the same light.
Dull over here. I'm popping over here.
It is the exact same light.
Anyway, so I'm just a little bit sweaty, but I'm happy that... That's
a low-key racist joke. You talking about because I'm light-skinned. I'm just saying.
Wow.
You going, you going there on me. All right.
Anyway.
No, but when I want to get back to the uncomfortable conversations. There's some people that have been surprised when they find out that we have a podcast, and then they listen like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that you guys talk about. And it's fun when they go through a discovery phase, but then every now and then we'll get these questions about, what's the most common thing people ask you when they email you? There's a lot of topics. But one of the things that I asked Snooks about is like, what should we talk about? What's something that keeps coming up? And she said, there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of things surrounding relationships that aren't necessarily true.
Well, it wasn't, okay, so it didn't come about as in like myths per se. There was a group of girls, ladies, I should say. We were at work, and, everyone, there's some that are married. There's a couple divorced, and I think maybe one is on her second marriage. One's been married 5 times, married and divorced 5 times. There's myself, and we all were just kind of talking about marriage and how men are, and just the different things about, divorce and
tell me, how are men?
And anyway, don't worry about that. Just, so that it kind of came up, and of course everyone has their different reasons why marriages end and how you stay married long, and what goes on, what transpires, the roles in marriages, and how they're different now. Because one of the ladies that I work with, her husband actually stays home and he takes care of the kids. They're trying to
That's
have
like a Blackish episode.
they're trying to have Dre works. What are you talking
No,
about?
but he had the guy at the school that
I was
the
like,
brother
what are
that
you
was
talking
making him
about?
feel some kind of way because he got to
Because
go
he
be with his
stayed
kids at
home
school.
and-
Yeah.
Well, and so they're trying to have another baby, but she's like always at work. She's always at work. And so the one who's been divorced 5 times, she's like, well, you do know how this happens, right? You know, they actually have 2 kids, but so we were just kind of talking about the different reasons why, not the different reasons, let's just say the number one reason why marriages don't last. The reasons why the number one reason why
You guys came up with a number one.
no, what they thought was, oh, I could tell you why it doesn't last.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, kind of like that. And so one was like, because the man, well, actually,
Because the man
common
what?
consensus was because the man messed up.
Oh, because the man cheats?
Well, cheats was in there. It messed up, you know, some way, shape, or form. Of course, it's all ladies now. So you know they're going to blame the man. So that is kind of how that came about. So I was telling Lovey about it. I said, you know, it's so funny how everyone has their different perspective or their different take on what's the reason and why this, and the different, okay, so yeah, we'll call them myths about marriage and why they last or how they don't last. And so I started looking up stuff because I'm the lookup queen. I like looking up things. And so I typed in 5 myths of marriage.
Okay, hold on. Before you go on there,
Okay.
we're going to dive back into this, but
I was like, dive back into what? Okay.
this conversation.
Oh, okay.
But before we go any further, I just want to remind.
Why you tell me to start and then you tell me to stop?
It's like a cliffhanger. Dun, dun, dun. No, what I wanted to do was remind everybody. I meant to do it at the very beginning, and that is to ask everyone to, not right now, wait till after the podcast,
Get
but
off right now.
go to Apple Podcast, leave us a review. If you've enjoyed the previous 91 podcast and you've gotten something out of it and you thought it was fun, we were entertaining, educational, what have you, heartfelt, you enjoyed the interviews, any of those things, go to Apple Podcast, give us a review, and more importantly,
Give us 5.
subscribe and tell your friends. And I'm trying really hard not to sneeze into the microphone because my nose is driving me nuts right now. But please, please, please go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. And again, more importantly, go tell your friends and get them to subscribe as well.
Yes.
Now back to our previously scheduled programming.
Okay, I'll pick up right where I left off at. And then, no. So I was looking up, I did type in 5 myths of marriage. And it's so funny how everyone, you know, different resources or different sources, they have their own 5. So I pulled up 3 different sources and the 5 myths of marriage, you know, and every source was different. I don't think that one, maybe 2 of them had the same thing somewhere, but each of them were all very different. So, and I just kind of got a kick out of what I found.
The different ones. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's like,
She's got like papers and lists and printouts. This is crazy.
I was like, what? I ain't never heard of that before. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about the first one.
And were so any of these consistent with what you and the ladies were talking about?
There's a couple, and okay, so let me just be clear too. When we were talking, we didn't necessarily talk about like why the marriage ends. We just talked about marriage in general. Some were like, well, marriage don't last, so I just, you know, I live with my boyfriend. Me and my honey been together for 20 years, and we've been living together because we don't need a piece of paper that says blah blah blah. And, you know, then of course, you know, about the man, he's a cheater.
Well, see, I'm not saying I want you to put their business out in the street, but I want you to put their business out in the street. I just want to hear. I'm curious. Like, so what were some of the things that they said that, okay, well, you had said before that this is the man's fault,
okay.
or
So how it actually started was one of the ladies, we were just kind of talking about the weekend and what we did over the weekend. And she was like, oh, I just cleaned up this weekend because I had stuff to do, and her husband, he had taken some stuff out of somewhere, didn't put it up, and she got tired of walking around it. So we all could kind of relate to that, and we just laughed about it. And so the 5-timer, I'll just call her that, 5-timer said,
Wow, okay.
That's why I'm not married now, because my last husband, he blah 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 whatever, and he would do that, and that's just annoying, and why is it always he makes a big old mess and now I have to pick it up. And so everyone kind of chimes in, and people give their own take about it. And I laughed. I said, to be honest, I said that's probably the flip at our house. I said Lovey gets so upset with me because I'll take something out, and they're like, you take something out. I give them I said, well, not necessarily take something out and leave it. I said, I'm a cabinet opener. I will open every cabinet and every drawer.
If it was up to Snooks, she would open up all of our cabinets and go next door to a neighbor's house. She'd go over to Britt's, and she will open up Britt's cabinets just to open them and leave them open, just to go piss our neighbors off.
I don't know.
She will not close doors.
Yes, I always close
No,
doors.
drawers.
I
You
was
won't
like,
close
what you mean?
drawers?
I'm scared.
She'll open up a drawer. Look, what really drives me nuts is when you actually have the cabinets open, a drawer pulled out, and the dishwasher is all the way down. The door is open.
Let's clarify. The only time I do that, as far as the dishwasher, is when I'm running super, super late at work and I cannot find a spoon to mix up to put.
She must be running super, super, super late. Like 4 out of 5 days of the week. Because I'll come downstairs like, okay. And I'm like, wait, I don't understand. Look, there's a knife. There might be a thing a jar that's opened.
Okay, now he's
a
not
knife.
even telling
Wait a
the
minute.
truth.
The
I know
butter.
you're ashamed.
The butter's laid out. The knife is there. Then there's a cup here.
You're not finna say
Something
that.
don't have the cup, the cap on it. Oh my goodness.
Lovey is so extra.
Cabinets open.
No, the cabinets are open.
If y'all go back through our Instagram, you'll go back.
That was one picture.
I will.
I did that on
See,
purpose.
she's owning up to it already.
Yeah, because I did it on purpose. I came down and I was in a particularly funny mood that day. And I was getting ready to leave. I said, you know what? I put my stuff down and I opened every cabinet up. I opened up the microwave. I opened up the oven. I opened up the dishwasher. I opened all the drawers, everything. And then I left and went to work.
Exhibit A. She knows that she is an offender.
Oh, I even opened up the pantry.
You did open up, man. Yep. So anyway,
it was fun.
Now, back to the ladies.
Story.
All right.
So no, she was just saying how that's why she's not married, and because who wants to pick up after a man and all this kind of stuff. And then we just started talking about just different things about marriages.
Is it different if you pick up after a woman? You said she don't like picking up after no man.
Well, that's what she said.
I'm just curious.
Those are her words.
Okay.
No man.
All right.
With the feeling too.
Amen.
So I just started looking at, like I said, different myths about marriage, and there were some pretty good ones, and then there's some that, the usuals you figure that would be there. Of course, so myth number 1, half of marriages end in divorce.
So is that like ranking, like this is the number 1
it
myth?
didn't
Or was it just like, here's
it was
5
the
and
number
no...
one. It says myth number 1. It didn't say that
Okay.
So anyway.
Didn't rank it.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it did.
I'm going to throw you off. Keep going.
Anyway,
So what did it say?
Now I'm all befuddled.
So what did it say about...
Well, it says,
half of marriage. I mean, that's something that's been out there for ages. People have always said that half of all marriages end in divorce. And sometimes I wonder, is that a fallacy? Do we need to look that up on Snopes?
Snopes?
And I don't even want to explain that to you. Just keep going.
I think I know about that.
Okay,
anyway.
we can talk about that after the podcast.
Sorry, my bad. So it says half of couples who tie the knot will be untying it before long. So, according to the CDC,
what year?
As of 2009, the marriage rate was 6.8 per 1,000 adults in America, and the divorce rate was 3.6 per 1,000.
That's old. That's 11 years old.
Oh, that is 2009. That is 11 years ago. Wow. So good thing I looked up the latest stats that I have was 2018. So.
Okay, my bad. Go ahead. Go on with your bad self.
So number of marriages is 2,132,853. That's according to the CDC. And
I don't know why
marriage
the CDC
rate
would be looking at that.
I know, right? But they look at a lot of stuff. Oh,
anyway,
see, you got me off.
That's not the CDC. That's the National Marriage and Divorce Rate Trends. Oh, never mind. You're right. I'm bad.
Yeah.
Go on.
See y'all how this is what happens at home. Anyway, the marriage rate is 6.5 per 1,000 total population. Number of divorces 782,380. 782,038, sorry. And this is what from 45 states and DC. The divorce rate has actually gone down 2.9 per 1,000. So that's good.
That's
Now,
only
that
three.
doesn't tell me how many that's only what?
No,
I ain't trying to do the math.
no, that's less than a percentage. I mean, like 1%. So that can't be right.
Well, I'm saying that's what they said. So,
Well, I will tell you that of all the people that we know that are married,
I think we know more married couples.
I do.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I even look at like our daughter's friends and both our daughter's friends, and their parents are all married.
True. A lot of the groups now. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Almost.
For people that don't know, I coach volleyball and I help run a volleyball organization. So it's a youth group for girls, and there's a lot of parents. A lot of demographics, socioeconomic backgrounds, the whole 9 yards. And I'd say it's about equally. It's probably more parents that are together than are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, that's a win as far as I'm concerned for marriage, especially for us. We had said that. Well, our story. That year 4, I asked for a divorce.
We might have some new listeners.
Okay, so year 4, I asked for a divorce at our anniversary dinner at Morton's while he was eating
cream spinach. No broccoli. It was cream spinach.
Anyway, so we were actually knocking at divorce's door, and through counseling and just really hard work, we were able to come back together. And since then, we have a saying: divorce is not an option. And I feel like
barring abuse.
Barring abuse, yes. Barring abuse. If you're in an abusive relationship, I'll tell man or woman, if you're in an abusive relationship, find some help. Find a way to get safe, because that's just not called for.
Emotional, physical, spiritual,
financial.
I mean, there's so many different forms of abuse, but barring abuse, divorce is not an option.
So one thing too I thought was interesting. So the number has declined since, driven by fewer divorces among college educated men and women who tend to delay marriage. So maybe people who marry earlier in life as opposed to later and have gone to college, and maybe they've established themselves somewhat. I don't know. But I thought
they say college educated, but I would tend to believe that a lot of people that, whether they're college educated or not, if they delay marriage, if they're getting married later for the very first time, I can see that there's probably some logic to that.
I always find out, because older people, they say, "Oh, I'm more set in my way." I don't know if that's like 70s, more set in their way, but maybe you mature. Hopefully, you mature too, and you're able to work out compromises better.
And you know what you want.
Yeah,
you know what you specifically want. When you're young. I mean, so many people that get married before the age of, let's say, 26, it can be challenging. And that's about the time we got married, right around 27.
No,
20,
we were 20, almost
27,
29.
28. So, and then,
29.
but 26, they said that the frontal cortex for the male does not completely form until you're 26. So,
oh, I thought it was until you're 55.
It might be in my case. It just might be. So that means that I got like 3 more years where I can say what I want and blame it on I'm not fully developed yet. I have not hit puberty yet.
No, sir.
But it's one of those things where I think that the older you are, you would think logically that a person would be, again, more mature and know what they want, a little bit more established. One of the major reasons for divorce actually is even on here when it talks about finances. That money is a major reason because,
No, it doesn't say what the top reason is.
I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder. Go ahead. What's the next thing?
Okay.
What's the next thing?
So, myth number 2, marriage kills sex.
Amen. It does.
Wow.
No.
Really? It's like, are you serious?
It murdered it. It was like a serial killer. No.
But it's so funny though, because you hear this in movies and comedians, and I've heard guys in the roundabout whatever talk about, oh, why would you want to get married? You just hand your cojones over to the woman or whatever. It's like people really think that marriage kills sex.
Well, and I think that.
Well, let's weigh in, Lovey.
Let's weigh in. Yeah. So.
You're a man.
No,
you're married.
I don't think it kills sex. I think what happens is that gentlemen, both men and women, have a tendency to think that it's that familiarity sometimes, and that's why you always hear people give the advice of spicing up your life, spicing up your sex life, doing different things, not different people, different things. Trying to spice it up to the point where it doesn't seem like it's the exact same thing. Look, if you were on a diet of food, I don't care what it is. Somebody's like, oh, I'm on paleo. Oh, I'm doing Whole30. Or I'm doing, whatever it is. After a certain amount of time, the effect of that particular diet on your body and your metabolism wears off. And I believe that from a biological standpoint, that people have a tendency to get into a rut in anything that you do. You can come home and talk to your spouse and be like, hey, how you doing? If you have the same conversation every single day, it will get boring. But the onus of responsibility rests back on the couple to be able to say, hey, you know what? People tell me that marriage kills sex. No, marriage doesn't kill sex. Lack of variation, lack of spontaneity, lack of imagination will kill your sex. And if you're sitting here doing vanilla, it's just, now, unless you guys are just like, I love missionary and that's my favorite and that's what I'm going to always do. And I don't want nothing else but vanilla. I love me some vanilla. Nope, not chocolate chip. Nope, not cookie dough. I just like vanilla. So if that's what's going to cause a problem. And there was I've mentioned this before, where people have asked about whether monogamy is truly something that humans can do, because they look at animals and they say, oh, well, these animals are not monogamous, and they're not meant to. They're supposed to actually go out and be with different. No, that's not the case.
That's the wild. Anyway.
There's only one animal that I know of that mates for life.
Isn't that the whale?
Nope. Well, maybe. I don't know. That's the only one that I know of.
Turtles.
Is seahorse.
Oh, I thought it was turtles.
I don't know.
And the whale. Maybe,
no, I think turtles be out there just getting a freak on. No, but I know seahorses actually mate for life. But here's the challenge.
Really?
One person I heard, I think it was Sean Stevenson or somebody he was interviewing, or actually no, it was I can't think of his name. It's come back to me later. But there was an interview that was taking place, and the guest was saying that realistically, you can be with the same person, but you're not the same person. Nobody should be the same person that you married. We've been married 23 years. Mm-hmm. I am not the same person that she married. I am different than who I was in year 1, in year 5, in year 10, in year 15, in year 20. We're all different. And if you are, so effectively, I say all that because effectively, you're not sleeping with the same person. You're sleeping with the new iteration or that individual. You're doing different things.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What about scheduling sex? Do you think that's a marriage killer?
It depends on the individuals. If you schedule sex, I personally think it's like, oh, because you hear about it. There's other organizations out there. There's I can't think of their name. My mind is really not working for me tonight. There's another podcast, another group out there that talks about scheduling sex. And there's a lot of groups out there that do that. There's a lot of marriage counselors that talk about it because you're so busy. You can still have a wonderful sex life if both of you are open to it as far as the scheduling. Okay, at 8 p.m. on Friday, that's our get down time. Nobody better call. Whatever. If that works for you, great. If it's spontaneity, at least schedule a spontaneity, meaning that, okay, this upcoming Friday, I don't know what time, I don't know how, don't know where, but that's going to be our time to really. So you clear the calendar in that respect. There's a variety of ways to do this, but here's the trick to it all. Be committed to being passionate with your spouse.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so for me, the whole scheduled sex thing, there have been times where I've scheduled sex. You just didn't know that I was scheduling it.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, because I
need access to your calendar.
No. Like when I was in school, and when we were doing volleyball, and it was just like I had no free moments. And so I was like, okay, I would be like, you'd be like, babe, you need to go to bed. And I'm like, no, I know, I just got to finish this. I was trying to get ahead so that I was like, okay, because this night it's just going to be us. So I'm going to be, I don't have to worry about putting aside whatever because I wanted it to be just you and I. I don't have to worry, what's going on. And my mind is not on whatever. It's
Right.
on this and it's on. And like you say, there are so many things that are always moving. A lot of people are so busy that scheduling sex, it doesn't sound like it could be fun, but it is fun because I'm like, okay, in my mind, okay, I got this. Oh yeah, we going blah blah blah, whatever. I have a whole scenario planned, and so if like you were saying, if you spice it up and you're passionate about, and it's not just the same. Oh, okay, let me here. Okay, take your pants off. Okay, turn over or whatever it is. You had no idea that I was scheduling.
I had no idea.
No.
So I'm going to give you full access to my calendar so you can do some more scheduling on my calendar as well.
No, because you don't like scheduling.
Here's the crux of it. The crux of it always comes back to communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were telling me that, okay, we want to move forward and we want to, I got this stuff that I need to do. You were talking to me about it. And don't get us wrong, folks. It's not like there hasn't been dry spells, because when we were playing, coaching volleyball, during volleyball, there's so much that's been happening where there have been times where we just could not, because our schedules just would not align.
It's so funny because, you go to, a lot of time you go to a hotel room, you're like, ooh, it's going to be romantic. Nope. Those were the most sexless hotel stays. I'm like, the girls are right in the bed next to us, It's like,
I was like, okay, they're off with their friends. It was like, but I'm
like, Lovey, come on. Well, I don't care about parent meeting. Let's go.
It's funny. That's funny. Okay, so marriage kills sex. Hopefully look, we mentioned communication. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Go to our website, marriedintocrazy.com. We are having another online Married Into Crazy communication workshop. It's free. It's free for you and your spouse, but you do have to register. And then you will gain access to our extreme execution assessment that has the flight assessment on there. Flight assessment. But it has the assessment on there. You'll be able to take that and be able to use that. And what we'll do is utilize some methods on disc to increase better communication. So when there are challenges with scheduling your sex, our class, our workshop will help you at least recognize the tendencies and the traits of your spouse or your partner. So that way you can know that, okay, this is how I need to schedule. This is how I need to approach it because I know how they like to communicate. Speaking of, and here's a perfect example. Just a few moments ago, you talked about how, okay, so it was fun for me because I got to schedule it and I had this idea and I had everything laid out. So Snooks is what we call an air traffic controller,
Yes.
according to our workshop. And between her necessity of having things laid out in a process, things in order, she had everything. She had an entire process that was laid. Everything that she wanted to do was very methodical in how she approached scheduling. Now, the sex wasn't methodical. At least I don't remember it being that, but her process of getting there was. And these are the things that we teach in our communication workshop, at least touch upon to at least make you aware of it. So please go to marriedintocrazy.com, go to our coaching page, that tab, scroll down, and you will see the workshop taking place on June 27th. So definitely take a listen.
Yeah.
And
Or look.
Right. Handle that. Okay, so myth number 3.
So, no, I want to say what about the marriage, how it kills sex. Just want to give some
go ahead.
numbers. Okay, so basically married couples are more likely than single couples to, 41% of married couples had sex at least once a week compared to unmarried people who don't have it that often as it seems that they do. Married couples were more likely than singles to reach orgasm at least 91% of the time they had sex, with 47% hitting that target compared with 38% of singles.
Wait, hold on, because that's important. So you said married people.
I was about to say high five.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Look, if you go out and I don't care how many times you have sex, if you're not having that drum roll at the end, it's probably not as fun. So married folks, hey, I'm proud of all y'all, 91%. Look at you. If you were a free throw shooter, you would be the bomb. You would be the one that nobody would want to foul at the end because
That's right.
you're handling your business with that 91%.
Big knack.
That's what I'm talking about. Good job there, husbands. Good job.
Really?
I'm just saying.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. What's next?
Next, myth number 3: husbands are more likely to stray.
False. False. Where do I hit the
What is that
button?
even? How do you know that?
Because
Cause what?
I don't know. Well, okay, so look here. I will say this: that in my personal experience, but back in my heathen days, before we met, when I was in the service, to me it appeared that there was no the wives strayed. And again, I was overseas on a base, and we were in another country. So women strayed, men strayed. It seemed like there was no. It was like equal opportunity. People putting payment plans in for hell.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well, give me some stats. Tell me what they say.
The studies suggest that men and women cheat at a similar rate.
Okay.
So women have caught up to the game, I guess, of cheating, because previously it was 20 to 25% of men cheat versus 10 to 15% of women cheat.
What are you saying? So it's about equal now.
So they said they basically cheat at a similar rate.
So I like to retract what I said earlier about how I was being a heathen. Actually, I was conducting research.
No, because that was in the 80s.
That was
early 90s.
That was in the let's call it was in the 80s.
I was about to say,
and in the
because
90s.
we met mid 90s.
Yeah.
So get it together, brother.
I'm just saying. Yep, that's good research right there.
Okay, myth number 4: divorce is always the worst choice for the kids.
That one hurts.
So for us, I mean, like we talked about ourselves, how divorce is not an option for us, but we both come from divorced households. And I know that knowing what I know, I'm glad that my mom and my dad, my mom and my biological father did not stay married, because my mom and my biological father, they used to argue, and I remember this. So I see families that are torn apart from the mom and the father fighting a lot or arguing a lot, and the kids they're in that environment, and they're just like, it takes a toll on them, the ones that I know. So not passing judgment or anything on anyone else, but like I said, I'm just glad that my mom and my dad saw fit to say, you know what, this is not working, and we just need to cut our ties and move on.
So my parents have been divorced ever since I was 2. My earliest memory happened around that time when there was a confrontation that took place, and they always say, "Oh, you should remember that you were just a baby." But I mean, I can tell the story like it was yesterday. It was pretty traumatic. But in that, I do believe that it's never good. So here's the thing. When you're in a relationship and you're married and you have children, your job isn't just to raise those children and help them become great citizens and upstanding individuals for the community. A large part of your responsibility is to model what it is to have a healthy relationship. And I think people lose sight of that or never think about it, because I up until a certain point, I had never seen a healthy relationship until my aunt married my uncle. So my aunt married, a gentleman, and when they got married, that was my first time seeing like true love. And did they have difficulties? Absolutely. But did they work it out? Absolutely. And it was just when they looked at each other, there was a level of respect that I hadn't seen in other relationships. I witnessed some craziness, people, checking genitals when they come home. I had witnessed, accusations left and right. My mother had been married 3 times, my father 4 times. And so when you say that divorce is always the worst choice for kids, think about when you stay married and you're arguing and it's an unhealthy relationship and it's nothing but toxicity that's in the home. The kids are witnessing that, and you're teaching them that that's the norm. This is what marriage is supposed to be. This is what a relationship is supposed to be. Us yelling and screaming and hitting and throwing and all these different things. Yeah, that's the norm. And then we turn around, we have the audacity to get upset when our daughter or our son turns around and exhibits the exact same behavior, either accepting of that behavior from someone else, or exhibiting that behavior and becoming the aggressor against someone else. And then we wonder, well, where'd that come from? Well, it's exactly what you taught them to do. And so it's better, I think, for an individual to give the kids an opportunity to be in as much of a stress-free environment. There's different stressors. Okay, so if you're not two people in a household, if you're not married, then yes, okay, might be a single parent working. That's going to create some stress economically, time-wise, a variety of different things. But I still have to think that is minimal compared to watching them fight and the anger and the frustration and all those negative things. It's going to create a form of PTSD. You know, there are a lot of kids right now, and they're recognizing that post PTSD. How's it? PTSD. Post-trauma stress. There you go. I was like, my mind is not working this evening.
Are you okay?
I have no idea what's going on.
Right.
But anyway, so that's why I think it's not the best choice to stay together for the kids, because you're ultimately doing a disservice to those children and to yourself. Look, this is not a dress rehearsal. It's not like we're going to live this out a little bit and then we're going to get to our real lives. This is all we get.
Yeah.
So you have to live your best life, and your best life, and teach your children how to live their best life as well.
I agree with that. And like you said, I know several people who are in relationships that are abusive, and we've had conversation, and they're like, well, I want to stay for the daughter or the son, and as gently as I can. I'm like, well, what do you think you're showing them? You're showing them that it's okay for her father to do this to you, or it's okay for your mother to do that, his mother to do, whatever. And, studies also show that kids that are in marriage, not marriages, but kids that come from marriage families where the father and the mother fought a lot and they stayed together, they experience a lot of conflict in their adult life and in their adult relationships. And more so than kids who don't come from that type of environment where the parents, they decide that they just want to split up. One thing, it's almost like too, I think about like an alcoholic. When there's an alcohol, your father's an alcoholic, I won't say 9 out of 10. I don't know what the actual statistical numbers are, but sometimes the kids grow up, and there is a high number that the kids grow up to become alcoholics also. In the same tone, you set that example for the kids. They will either be they're more likely to be either abused or the abuser. So it's like we talked about before. People are watching. The little people, the people that matter, are watching. I remember arguments and stuff that my mom and my dad had, and I said, oh, I would never do that. And I was very young, and I don't remember exactly what they were about. I just remember the actions. I couldn't tell you what they were fighting about, but I remember the slamming of the doors, the yelling, or whatever. And I was like, early on, I was like, no, I will never do that. I won't take that. So,
earlier this past week, I ended up talking with someone that it wasn't a coaching session, but we had a very deep conversation with the gentleman that I had met, and had a discussion about being in a narcissistic relationship. And he had been in a relationship with a narcissist, and upon further reflection, come to find out that his mother, the way he described his father, was a narcissist. And so he grew up in a narcissistic home where the mother did certain things to appease the narcissist. And so he in turn was his first relationship was that. And to your point, what happens is we exhibit behaviors and we mimic them. If you see how a baby interacts with the people around them, they always mimic. They have a tendency. You stick out your tongue, they'll try and stick out their tongue. You move a certain hand or whatever, then they'll try and mimic. And that mirroring takes place in more than just the physical attributes. It also happens with our mental and our habitual processes. And we have to be very careful of that, because children will hear 0% of what you say,
but 100% of what you do. See 100% of what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you think they're going to mimic? What takes root?
It's always the bad stuff. Seems like, right?
Seems like that. Seems like that. So it's just, I know we spend a lot of time on this one, but I think it's really important for people to really think about. If you're in a relationship, by no means are we saying, oh, you need to get a divorce. But what we are saying is seek help. Recognize whose eyes are on you, and really talk to somebody. And I'm not saying do it for the children, to get counseling, to get coaching, try and get to that next level. But I will say, be aware of the consequences of all your actions, but don't just stay there for the kids, the sake of the child, because you may be doing more damage staying together than you are. And hey, we're marriage coaches, and we talk to people all the time about staying together and giving methodologies and different things that they can do to approach the communication. So we're all about love. We love love. But what I can't ever advocate is damaging a child's opportunity to live a fruitful, happy and loving life down the road as well. So anyway.
Okay, so the last one is couples therapy is for fixing a broken marriage. That's a myth. That's what they say.
Couples therapy?
Couples therapy is for fixing a broken marriage.
Okay, so if you're in an elevator and that elevator goes up and down, there's 25 floors, and those buttons are pushed all the time. Just like in a marriage, buttons are always getting pushed. And at some point, you think, you got two buildings, both 25 floors, buttons getting pushed all the time. One building, every year or so, every 6 months, maybe annually, maybe every 2 years, there's a maintenance person that comes in and works on the elevator. And that thing never has a problem. The building next door, 25 floors, 25 buttons being pushed all the time, lots of traffic, all of that, but they never have anybody. Which building they never have anybody come in and do maintenance? One of those elevators are potentially going to break down. Let's say they're being used these exact same amount of buttons being pushed, same amount of time passes by, but one is getting periodic maintenance to make sure it continues to work. One gets zero maintenance. Which one do you think is going to break down first?
The zero maintenance.
Same thing with our relationships. Buttons are being pushed all the time. And there's a lot of traffic that goes on. The years go by. And I believe that couples therapy, whether it be with coaches like Snooks and I could put a shameless plug in there right now, but I'm not going to. But you could go to marriedandcrazy.com, check out our coaching. And
hey, that sounded good.
You need that constant maintenance, not because something is wrong, but because you know that you want this thing to work for a very long time.
Well, that's just like a car. They give you instructions when you buy a car. I think we kind of talked about some of the maintenance that take care that happen in a car, the preventative maintenance and certain things. And you do things to make sure that whatever it is that you use and you utilize often, that it stays running correctly. The refrigerator, the washer and the dryer, like I said, the car. You can't just put gas in the car and then just keep going. You have to get an oil change. You have to have a tune-up. There are other things that happen with the car. You have to put fluid in and certain things like that. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is about going to therapy. I guess maybe because the word therapy, it makes it sound like there's something wrong with you. So when you say, I got to go to couples therapy, you don't typically go to therapy unless there's something wrong. Like, what is that? Physical therapy. Right. So I need to rebuild whatever. I mean, you can look at it in the same way, but it's always a negative when you talk about fixing your relationship or working on your relationship or maintaining it. Everyone looks at it negatively. Oh, I'm good. We good. We don't need that. We solid. We blah, blah, blah. And da-da-da. But
blah, blah, blah. And da-da-da.
I'm sorry. Lovey hates when I do that. But what people don't realize is that when you go to therapy or counseling or whatever it is, coaching, right, you're able to get different types of tools. You get emotional tools that you can utilize in your marriages and learn how to conflict resolution and, besides slamming the door or saying he's dumb or whatever,
There's all that. If you go back, episode 83 of our podcast, scroll back and take a listen to, because we talked about this in depth.
I thought we talked about.
We did, and I don't want to mess up the title because I have a tendency to do that. But it was "Don't Wait for the Dummy Lights." That was a fun episode, but it was talking about maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
It was really talking about maintenance. Don't wait for the dummy light to come on. You don't want to wait for your oil light to come on to get that oil. You want to make sure that you handle it before then. Same thing with your gas. You see when the needle is moving. It's that constant maintenance. You know that if you want your marriage to be a finely tuned machine, the Mercedes, the Bentley, the whatever, you need constant maintenance, because if you wait for something to go out, it's going to be expensive.
And one thing too, we need to think about when dealing in counseling or whatever. You have a good relationship, but you can have a great relationship. And if you say, "Oh, I have a great relationship," but you can have an amazing relationship, and if it's amazing, you can go to phenomenal. Don't just stay at good. Good is good, but why settle for good when you can have phenomenal? And these type of tools that you can get from marriedintocrazy.com. Sorry. But these are the type of tools that you learn, how to interact, how to do certain things, and you appreciate each other, So.
I do. I think it's a great point. This was fun talking about all these different things, and it was so funny though, as I was looking through your notes as you were talking, and there's so many other topics that it's funny. All these different sources have different myths, and they don't overlap. There's different ones, and it's funny, depending upon what you look up, you might find 5 other myths that were, because I'm looking at these pages and they're all different.
Yeah,
and
I like the one with Napoleon Hill where he talked about like marriage, more people that are married are successful. More successful people are married than not. So like Napoleon, this was over 100 years ago, obviously, but he's researched the 100 most successful people, and they were all men, and they were all married. I was like, oh, that was because of the woman.
More than likely. I like Napoleon Hill. You go back, you take a look at the Napoleon Hill Foundation. There's some great work there, like Think and Grow Rich. There's some great books. But if you're going to read Think and Grow Rich, read Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. Who was actually brought in by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to finish the manuscript that was being developed by Napoleon Hill for the African American community. So this was fun. We're not going to do a I Can for couples today, are we? Before we do, if we're going to do I Can for couples, it's right there.
I know. Did you not want to?
No. So what we'll do is, before we do that, I do want to say this before you shake it up, because we're coming to the end. Don't say. I said before we shake it up.
Oh. Sorry.
One thing I want to do is at the end of every podcast from now until the end of the year, our goal is that from now until the end of the year, we are going to recognize silence at the very end of our podcast for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And those 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we're not politicizing this, but what we are saying is that there are a lot of voices that are being silenced, like George Floyd. And there's Ahmaud Berry. There's Breonna Taylor. There's Trayvon Martin. There's Tamir Rice. There's Eric Garner. The names go on. There's Philando Castile. There's so many names that we can mention right now. But beyond their names, there's so many names that we've never heard of, that have gone through the exact same plight, that have had the exact same voice or similar voice that has been silenced forever. And so what I'd like to do, and what we plan to do, is that when we sign off after we do the I Can for couples, and we say bye-bye, there will be 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence. And then our outro music will come in. And we'll do this at the end, like I said, of every single one of our podcasts from here on out. So didn't mean to put like a serious tone on that, but I'll bring it up earlier in the podcast next time. So right now we're going to go for our 2 for the road.
Sorry.
I'm on the road next week. We can call it that again.
Oh, okay.
So what we're doing is pulling from the I Can for couples, which is available on the website. And what we're doing is, these are affirmations that start off with I can. And these are little things that make all the difference in the world in your relationship, but they're super simple. And there's 40 different ones in each can. And it's a bit of a tool to help you kind of plan things out. And you can use it how you like. So what does yours say?
I can do the grocery shopping.
So mine actually says something that I've been promising you I would do for the last 2 weeks.
Rub my feet.
Yep. It says, I can massage my partner's feet. And something always comes up.
Yes, he always says that too. What was it? Sunday night we were watching a movie and he goes, "Oh, I could be massaging your feet right now." I was like, "Lovey, I'm ready to go to bed."
Yeah, so my bad, but I will handle it. I will handle. You might even get 2 this week.
I'll let y'all know if he does.
Well, I'm hoping. I'm gonna check her calendar to see what's scheduled.
That might affect the schedule.
All right. Well, you know what? We love each and every one of you. We're so pleased that you have chosen to spend some time with us and listen. We are married into crazy, as are you. Now, we might debate on which one of us married into crazy.
Who's the crazy?
But it doesn't matter because we're in it together. So until the next time, be blessed.
Bye-bye.